This conference will now be recorded.
That's for what was it just yeah. What was assuming that we had a big, in 2017, the beginning game was equal, so there should have been a big spike during that period of time. So is there a top sitting underneath the character sheet? No, okay, John.
Oh.
You gotta skip over comments from the public.
Yeah, well, I guess we're hybrid, so there might be some.
You're right.
I see only.
I'm out of practice. Thank you very much.
This is weird.
I got this copy of them.
Okay. One more second.
All lowercase, so I can see the screen, maybe have half the lights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big one is
Much better.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we function good in the dark.
Oh, can they still see us?
I don't know.
I'm still up there.
Brown out, got the other brown out.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
All righty. So it is 9 o'clock. So I'm going to call this meeting to order, and if we'll all stand and face the flag, which we actually have a flag today, and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do you believe it was roll call time?
It is.
Wow. Director Borrego.
Here.
Director Johnson.
Here.
Director Johnson. Vice President Baker.
Here.
President Rice.
All right, so, I'm not sure who we have on.
Yeah, I think it's been exactly 3 years, right, Jessica?
It
What you're
has.
saying, like literally your
March,
first meeting?
March 10th was our last
3
in-person
years
meeting,
ago.
2020.
Sure.
Exactly 3 years ago, we stopped meeting in person because everything was shut down for COVID.
Jessica had one meeting, she said. She got hired, one meeting, and then
It was, yeah, it was, and we were planning a town hall and everything just stopped. The world stopped, and now this is, it took us 3 years to get back here. It's pretty amazing. So, let's see, we need to approve today's agenda, and I'll entertain a motion to do so. So moved. Thank you, Diane. Do I have a second? Thank you, Diane. Any discussion on that? Any discussion from the public? Comment from the public? All right. I guess I don't have to call the roll anymore, do I? Okay. All in favor? Say aye. Any opposed? No. Unanimous. Okay. Are there any comments from the public and or requests for future agenda items? Hearing none and not seeing anybody unmuted there. Are there any comments from the directors?
Kathy, I'll make a quick comment, just like 2 minutes before I went on the door, I saw an article in the party. Anyway, that EPA has regulated PFAS, and I think it was a final regulation. Not just putting it out for comment. So I sent everyone a link to that, so that you need.
Good morning. We now call the March 14, 2023 regular meeting, flood control district meeting, fire protection district meeting, and in-home supportive services public authority meeting to order. I would like to first take a moment to acknowledge the land of these homes. There are communities in the San Diego region that face unjust conditions and circumstances related to the environment in which they live. The tribal nations of the San Diego region are the example of these communities that have historically faced such injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the
That's
land.
my, we should mute caller 2. There she got it.
Done. Okay. Yeah, when we went to the Aqua Conference in last December, I attended a seminar, yesterday, we were there in person, on PFAS, and I have a lot of information that I can give to the water quality committee, just about what's, what it is. It's more far-reaching than I thought, because it's all the plastics in the world. So everything that goes into our, dump, and everything that goes into our trash, all that can actually.
It's pesticides.
It's in pesticides, it's in so many different things. All the way down to the fishies.
It's in the lining of microwave popcorn bags. It's kind of a non-stick,
Yeah, that's how it
It's
is.
like, dang it. No.
I know. So,
Random research.
it's more far-reaching than I originally thought. I thought, oh, we don't have any industry here. Well, it's not just industry.
Oh, that, I remember this, that these new biodegradable containers. Somebody did a study where they literally soaked one of those biodegradable containers in water and PFAS came out. So it's some sort of additive that's part of the process to make these brand new compostable replacements for stuff.
Biodegradable, yeah, it goes away and then it leaves behind. Okay,
I
well,
have a comment.
We're running, yeah.
yes, Wendy.
For Brooke's benefit, could you spell that?
I
I don't think you can work around it in a minute.
Well, it's a chemical, and I can't.
They're all letter P,
Solid
F, A, S,
P
it's
is
the initials.
PFA, so we say
Yeah,
PFAS.
ironically, it was on the only non-Spanish speaking channel over the mountain.
I heard
They were
that.
talking about it this morning. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, they're
Microwave
starting to
popcorn
test
bags.
in public drinking water. They're trying to pass laws to test for it. So yeah,
Oh, that's funny.
So eventually that might.
I'm on the same page with you guys. I got you.
So, yeah, because hopefully we'll remember to not abbreviate everything.
Catch up.
Okay, any other comments?
Sorry, you're right, it's everywhere.
Yeah. And it will affect probably our testing in the future. So. Any correspondence received from?
It's their proposed regulations.
Oh, are they?
So they're probably.
Yeah, I was thinking there hadn't been any.
Yeah, so they're open for comments.
Yeah.
Or.
But that's good. I mean, it's good that they're paying attention. I was just reading about how there's 21,000 pieces of plastic for every human being on the planet. That's how much. And, we need to reduce what they use. And it's kind of sickening to think that there's these huge garbage patches in the ocean. Anyway, okay. Enough of that for now. Correspondence received from the public, yeah? Any? No, okay. So then we're going to go down to section 2, the items for board consideration and possible action. And the first one is 2A, which is our recognition to Wendy for all her contributions. And Wendy, I've always been in awe of your note taking and your minutes, and truly the shorthand that you use is a lost art or a dying art, because I have not seen it.
I think it's dead.
Well,
This
that's
is it right here.
It's possible, but it made it possible for you to take wonderful notes, but also the fact that you gave us great minutes. So I just wanted to say, what was it, 18 years that you've done this?
16.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And I really, I don't think the board can thank you enough for your service. So we're trying with a little plaque and a little gift. So, and this is for you. And enjoy your retirement. I know,
My second retirement.
your second, yeah, you're just slowly coasting into doing something that you want to do. I know that this is because you had to, sort of. And
Yeah.
I think 16 is enough.
Yeah, thank you so much.
But we're happy, we're so happy you were with us, and we wish you well.
Thank you.
All that you do,
Thanks.
all that you do.
It's approaching like 400 meetings. I started doing it.
Oh my God. That's a little scary,
Well,
actually.
it's been a pleasure working with you all.
Yeah, well, we can't thank you. I mean, our corrections on minutes have been so few, it's hardly worth mentioning.
After Lyle left. Ooh, a Carly's gift card, perfect. You all know I like Carly's.
Yeah. We all
A little
do.
bird told us.
So anyway,
Thanks,
congratulations and thank you. Our next item is to be resolution number 2023-03-01, recognizing the contributions of David Dale, who is leaving us
And there he is.
very soon.
He's
Where
in the
are you off to, David?
I'll be working for the County of Imperial.
County of Imperial, wow.
Mhm.
Okay, as an engineer, I take it? Or a city?
Assistant Public Works Director.
Okay, good job, good work. Okay, so we would like to recognize David. We thank you for all that you all the designing work you have done for us and all the planning. And I guess the tanks will be okay with, the planning will go okay without you, but we sure appreciate the fact that you got that started.
Thank you so much.
And I hope that your future endeavors will be a success. And so,
Thank you.
board, we need to have a motion to approve a resolution for David Dale.
So I move that we approve resolution number 2023-03-01.
I second.
Okay, David, Tammy, and is there any other discussion or comments?
Your office is looking good, David.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's built out more than the last time we saw it. It's got bookcases on one side and your air
Yeah.
is put up there.
Ceiling fans.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Because they don't need it anymore. You should time go to work.
I know. Well, that's true. Home office is good. We'll miss you, Dave.
Yeah, thanks, David.
We really appreciate all that you've done for us.
Well, I really do appreciate the time that I was given to work with you all. You are amazing folks over there. You're doing a wonderful job. You got the district going in the right direction, and I don't think you need me anymore. You got it.
Oh, don't say that, but we'll just have to go back to the way we did things before you came along, but we're grateful for your time with us. So,
I'm grateful for you all.
if no one else has any comments or questions, I will call I would say comments from the rest of the public. Anybody? All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Can't imagine. Passes unanimously. So let's see. Item 2C is a discussion for future consultant needs.
Yes, Mr. President, perfect segue, right? With Mr. Dale's departure, it got me thinking about, okay, well, gee, we have the need to replace David. And David had a real unique background and experience where not only could he provide the services that the district engineer would normally provide, he could also do like detailed development of plans and specifications. You know, we didn't need to hire any consultant to build our projects. In terms of the bid documents, the design, very, very unique skill that we took advantage of definitely while he was here. We should have added the miles of pipe and the the money that we spent, thanks to David, but, we got a lot of work done, but we're not done. We've got a couple of projects right on the horizon, the Borrego Springs Road transmission main and the Sungold pipeline replacement, which were funded with that Darrell Issa, Alex Padilla special appropriation from last year. We started design on that project. In terms of kind of the district engineer function, district engineer is here to help answer any sort of technical questions, but also to be our technical expert and point of contact with any developers. Just so happens, Ramsdale has interest in proceeding with its development up there, so the time is kind of perfect in which we would need some technical support as we go through the negotiations with Ramsdale on various development-related issues. So we will need a traditional district engineer, and then we'll need someone that has the skills to develop all the detailed plans and specifications, those documents. Now, the good news is we have a lot of templates. The bids and specs won't change a lot between one pipeline job and the other. Like our standard drawings won't change a lot between one pipeline job and the other. So a lot of the work that David's done can be used in the future, customized and changed for the different projects. But there's still a definite need to have both of those skills going forward. So I'm pondering options. Kathy mentioned we'll go back to the way we did it before. And for those of you that didn't know, David's been here twice. When the district consolidated the community service, when the water district consolidated with the community service district, the Club Circle DSR, David was the manager, I think, at that time, so he came on board in the district to help with engineering issues. Then he left and he's city manager, and then came back to the district and worked with us for a few more years. And so when David was gone, we used Carlos Beltran from Dynamic Engineering as our district and plan developer and bid document and specification developer. Why Carlos? Things are different on this side of the mountain, and Carlos has a real Imperial County, East San Diego County experience. They're from El Centro, right, David? Is that where their offices are? But they do work for all the big water districts around town and various, not around town, in the Riverside, in the Imperial County area, a lot of experience, water, sewer work. They just kind of speak our language. Their rates are typically lower than the firms on the other side of the mountain. So I have started talking to Carlos again about his availability and level of interest to become our district engineer. He's definitely interested. David informed me that actually Carlos hired a retired engineer just in the recent past, and it was kind of an ironic connection to where this engineer that Carlos hired used to have the job that David's taking over.
Wow.
He left to work for this gentleman left to work for the Imperial Irrigation District for 10-ish years after leaving the county as the Assistant Public Works Director, and now he wants to retire but still work, and Carlos has hired him. Not necessarily to be our guy, but he just happened to do it simultaneously with what I'm talking about doing. We're not committed to using Carlos at all. It's just kind of my idea for a reasonable and kind of logical next step. Now, at the same time, I'm like, well, who knows? There might be a young engineer, another retired engineer that wouldn't mind doing kind of what David did for us and work directly. So I'll be honest with you, I'm going to put an ad in like the Aqua News and the Brown and Colorado newsletter, which are kind of the trade publications for people that might be looking for a job, just to see what's out there. But then I'll continue with Carlos over this next month or so, get all the documents ready, his hourly rates. I'll get proposals for the jobs that we know he needs to do, like the Borrego Springs pipeline and the Sungold pipeline replacement project. There's probably something else that I'm not thinking of. Oh, and then support with Ramsdale issues going forward, being the traditional district engineer. So in a month or so, I will come back with, hey, here's the proposal for Carlos, or hey, I found an old guy or a young guy, an old guy or gal, or a young guy or gal who's really interested. And we think of this as a part-time job, and it doesn't necessarily have to be. So we are flexible. There is quite a bit of a workload in the short term with the various pipeline projects. So we have some flexibility in terms of staffing. So anyway, we're looking at options. I'm looking at kind of how we did it before, and then looking to see if there's any new ideas for whatever reason, I'm kind of leaning away from, let's just blast a request for proposal out there and get proposals from Irvine and San Diego. And I don't know why. Or maybe you guys can convince me that, Jim, let's really throw that fish net out there and see what we can find. Yep. I think I know what's out there. Yep, the traditional firms with what I would consider kind of high rates. And everything's out of the textbook. And it's different out here. You know? The other side of the mountain just, I don't know, there's a different animal over here. So where Carlos just seems to have, well, he worked with us for a few years already when David was gone. Like I said, he's got that imperial, that desert blood. And it's a small firm and responsive. His brother David does all this surveying, and we do a lot of surveying as part of the project. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about in terms of David's replacement. Now, what else do we need in terms of other consulting support? And I'm not saying it has to be David Beltran that does the work for us going forward. It can be other consultants, but in terms of, does the board have any thoughts on that there's some unmet consulting need? We should be studying something that we're currently not studying, and I think this is probably a kind of a philosophical discussion, but it's also kind of practical because, what is it, just tomorrow, the ABC committee.
Oh, yeah.
Audit and budget committee. And,
Coincidentally,
and
we need to know what your,
please be thinking about it, because some of what you want to have studied would potentially have budget. Well, everything will have budgetary impact depending upon how big the expense is, but it's not a speak now or forever hold your peace moment, but I'd like to have, and I don't need the answer right now. I think maybe we can come back in 2 weeks, even 2 weeks, to see if anybody's thought of anything else. But I'll stop there. So yeah, board members, what do you think about, are there any other consultants that I need to be looking for over this next month or so? And that kind of dovetails into the budget discussion that the committee will have tomorrow, which is the committee is Gina and
Diane.
So, in writing my comments, my individual comments about the annual report,
And that was the water master.
That's the water master, right? Yeah, there are two main players here, Brooke and us, and the water master, and T2, and Aware, which is agriculture. Anyway, I had the idea of looking at the Sigma portal to see what the DWR runs on its website.
What's Sigma and DWR? No, never mind. Jessica will explain it.
There'll be lots of.
Meeting will take forever.
Yeah.
We can't not do it,
Right, to see what they're, how they're structuring their reports. And I was noticing that there are other firms that are involved in water planning. And I guess what I'm thinking about is maybe more strategic or classic management consulting, that it would, I think it could be very useful to us. I've sort of been scrambling, and the more that I learn, the more I realize I don't know that there is to know. So, for example, the Pajaro Water District, which I fear is underwater right now, as it happens, has had for a few years now, a big public involved advisory council on its groundwater planning. And the outfit that seems to support them is called Montgomery and Associates. So that's one firm, and I've looked at them a little bit. So I'm not at all talking about not continuing to rely on Trey, but Trey is really more of an engineering consultant, not necessarily like, looking out at future things and how we might position ourselves. And it looks like this Montgomery Associates does that. They wrote a plan up there. There's a group called Todd, I can't remember if it's Todd Associates, TODD. There's Woodard and Curran which works up in the Coachella Valley and has for quite some time. And they're the consultants running the Integrated Regional Water Management project in San Diego, actually. So they have that broader view. So these are just ideas. Have I said enough?
Well, I'm trying to think where you're thinking this will fit in. We have a stipulated agreement, we have a GMP, a groundwater management plan, that's attached to the stipulated agreement. So and the water master is in charge of implementing that and managing that. So could you be more specific about what you think this management group can do and why?
What I was focusing on in the comment letter is water quality. And one issue that I feel like I'm seeing, and the whole board obviously needs to talk about it, is that the planning and management action, which we call a PMA, Brooke, you'll hear that word a lot, for optimizing water quality. That's how it's phrased. It's the water quality optimization program. It kind of skips from monitoring what's actually going on to dealing with exceeding the minimum threshold of a contaminant. And to me, in between, they're saying, we should be saying, the plan should be looking at what happens when we start to, at what point do we start getting alarmed as we're approaching the minimum threshold for a particular contaminant, rather than waiting until we get to it and saying, oh my goodness gracious. And then what do we do to perhaps head off actually reaching that minimum threshold? And the plan really goes from monitoring to what can we do to mediate things, mitigate, I'm not sure which word, if we hit that minimum threshold. So it goes to, we could do water blending, which will work very well here. We could find new sources of water, which we can try to do, new wells, expensive of course, or we can try to work, it does talk about working with farmers, for example, on maybe modifying their pesticide application processes to prevent. And then the other thing that's completely not, I think it's not in the GMP at all, is what to do with constituents of concern. And that's another phrase, COC, it's often abbreviated. It talks about the 5 or 6, is it, things that we know we're concerned about, nitrate, arsenic, dissolved solids, etc. But it doesn't look ahead. And the Sigma law itself talks about looking for plumes of contaminants that might be either affecting or threatening the aquifer. And I don't think, if I'm remembering right, the GMP talks about that at all. Dave might know this. I think it's my theory. Again, this is completely a theory, that in writing the GMP, the GSP at the time, so much other heavy stuff had been worked out, and this was just sort of, yeah, we'll put some markers in place in the GMP here. And the GMP does say that, we'll need to work on developing this optimization program, that take a while, etc.
DWR hasn't actually approved or
Not yet.
so there could still be language that they're looking for in terms of, I don't know. We haven't seen it. So I mean, we still don't know whether they're going to be happy with the plan, whether they want something a little more. We're working on essentially a draft right now because it hasn't been approved. So what do you think this management company could do in terms of Sigma and the water master and water quality. I guess I'm trying to understand why you think and what you think this, in terms of the big picture of the water master, what you think this company can do. Or a company.
One thing I think would be really helpful to us is knowing what's going on in other basins. You know,
Other stipulated basins.
well, that,
Because that changes everything.
I'm not sure that it does, and that's something that I'd like, actually, I think that's something that's very much up in the air. And if somebody had a broader view of what's going on, that could be helpful. We've seen that BWR doesn't want to allow the Water Master Board to function as a public agency, such as a GSA would be. But in other ways, they seem to be pretty much equating water masters with GSAs in terms of being responsible for the management of the whole basin, for example. So like Fox Canyon, which I think Trey is quite familiar with actually, I think is in the process of becoming a Sigma adjudicated, or no, maybe they're an old-fashioned adjudication as I've come to distinguish them. Maybe it's another part of that big basin over there. Maybe it's another sub-basin. Having more of a picture than we've been getting, and you know, I'll do what I can, but I'm certainly not any kind of expert on this. I just dig around and don't hold very much weight when I speak at water master meetings. Obviously, I'm not on the TAC. Okay, so if you would like, if the board has the sense that it's worth looking into, I can try contacting like Woodard and Curran and Montgomery and Associates, et cetera, and say, what are you guys doing in terms of planning?
I apologize, this was flipping my phone, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. We'll trust you.
Did you record our meeting? We have the lights up and everything, come on.
Put up my Zoom on accident, I'm so sorry. Oh,
It's
no,
all right, it's a
taken.
public meeting. So.
Okay.
So
Everybody. How about this, before, well,
I'm still not clear on.
okay, I read through with you, Kathy, because I think like in terms of scope of work, what would I specifically ask the consultant to do? And then that's kind of what you were saying. What do you want from that? So I just put it in real different terms is, what would I really ask the consultant to do specifically?
Well,
So I mean, obviously you don't have to answer that right now on the spot, right? Unless you have it figured out.
What I would ask is, what are we missing? Are we missing something? My point is that I'm realizing there's this whole world out there that
Can I give you my honest opinion? I'm comfortable with where we are. I thought Andy's presentation about future planning and the work that's going to be done as part of the Prop 68 program addressed, I won't say all of our concerns, but a lot of them. Sure, they might not have all of them, but it sure seems like a huge step in the right direction. So I think it's important for us to protect our water quality, that we need to make sure that we know what's happening within the BWD wells. So I'm comfortable with really studying our wells, but to kind of expand it and to start doing the water master's job of us paying consultants to look at basin-wide issues and make recommendations on, I'm not saying you're saying this, but how to manage the basin or making any sort of substantive change. What's the best way? I think there's better ways to spend our resources than that.
I kind of feel like it sounds to me like rather than a consultant, it's almost like you want a lobbying group to go to the water master meetings and push on water quality issues. I just don't
No,
see
I
the
want
point of a
someone to help
manager.
us think about this stuff. Trey just knows the basin so incredibly well and knows, the history and knows the engineering, the hydrogeological aspects. But I have felt, going back to advisory council days, he's very good at telling us a fact. And then I just sit there thinking, what are the implications? And Trey doesn't always, and I think this might be an engineering frame of mind. He doesn't always step forward and look forward and say, so this is what you need to be doing.
Do you ask that question when he gives you some information? Do you say, so what is the implications? I mean,
I tried that at the last meeting. I asked him if he could sort of put aside his engineering hat for a minute. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm waiting.
no, go ahead, Jeannie.
Well, from my perspective, I'm thinking as a board, when like Trey gave us those draft comments on the draft monitoring plan, we need to give him direction. And I think that's where we kind of fell down. But nonetheless, Jeff put together that letter and the comments from the TAC, and I think that's great. I think Trey's ready to talk to us, but we have to start asking some better questions of him. And I'd advocate to give that a chance. And I know Jeff said we're just engaged in the water master stuff, and it's a lot. There's just a lot going on right now. So I think it's a matter of trying to figure out, how we can better ask or, give Trey direction on what we want, and then figure out if there are other things we need. But I think at this point, it's kind of we did some corrections, right?
One of the things we agreed on as a board not too long ago was to include Trey in our prep board for the water master meetings and to give him some ideas about what we're looking for. And we did that in the last review. And I don't, it seems like we're jumping into the next category without actually seeing if that's satisfactory to the board. So anyway.
I'm fine with that, but I wanted to raise it.
The phrase trust but verify comes to mind. And there's a lot of hope that the water master is, and I use the word hope, going to do what we would like the water master to do if we were the water master. And so there's a lot of trusting that's right, but there's also the phrase of verify, like, well, are they really doing what if we were water master, what we would do? And I think the point that Diane's making, when she's taken such an effort to try to be the person that becomes informed on the sort of verification step, that's a heavy, heavy load. And I think that if it is worthwhile to have us consult with other experts about what are the reasonable things that other people are doing that face these kind of questions. What are the questions that we should ask the water master? Are we asking the right ones? Are we pushing? You sort of have a set of beliefs of things that should be pushed based on your research, Diane. Maybe those are the appropriate ones. Maybe they're not. Maybe people have been through this before. There's other things we should be doing now. And so I think it does make sense for the board to find some expertise in this general field to advise us on what has worked in other basins, what has not worked in other basins. I think that's just worthwhile for us because we do have a role to play in the water master, both technical advisory and as a voting member, and that we should be informed. I think we should have more than just Diane and Gina now doing that, but it's worth asking some outside folks.
But I do think we get, here's what's happening in the real world, opinions a lot from Steve, from Trey, is they are dealing with other basins. I mean, this is brand new to us, but it's not brand new to other people. And sure, once again, Borrego is very unique. There's no adjudication like ours. So the fact that they work elsewhere doesn't mean we have that everything they do over there applies here and vice versa. But we do have those experts in place. To me, it's back to the what questions are we asking them? And I think we've asked Trey to keep it very technical, and I think that's his area of expertise. Trey doesn't want to get political, I don't mean to speak for him, but I think he's more comfortable being a hydrologist and talking about what's his area of expertise, and we'll leave the politics and the policy issues up to us. Now, if there's a technical issue that impacts a policy issue, the perfect time to get his input. But I'm still just sitting here thinking, but like specifically, what's not being done? And instead of hiring a consultant, I could call the general manager or the executive director from Fox Canyon and engage at the staff level to get more about what are you doing? Give me your top 10 questions you would like to hear. What are you doing for water quality? What are you doing for selection of the technical representatives or whatever the issues are that you want to come up with that I could at the staff level try to get input. Just hiring a consultant and we can't be everywhere all the time just because we have limited resources and it's not our duty. We have representation on the board. That's how we influence the water master process and the water master discussions and decisions. So I just don't want to get too far in front of ourselves. And you know, PFAS is a great example. I think that is one that has now emerged to be an issue that will confront us. But to a certain degree, there's not a lot we can do about it. We'll research it, we'll understand it, but when the regulations come into play, we will sample for it and just deal with it. So to me, a lot of it comes with resource management, and I don't necessarily want the director. Thank you for volunteering to do that, Diane, but just have directors calling consultants just isn't how things normally work, you know, for their opinions or comments or advice on certain issues. You know, that's so.
I guess I'm
I just can't get. Honestly, I just can't get hung up about. I don't see the panic button anywhere nearby this.
So there's no panic button, but I disagree with your assertion that directors shouldn't work with experts in the field to give us guidance, because it's our job as directors to give you guidance. And so we must feel informed that we're providing the right guidance for you. And so I think it's completely appropriate for directors to work with experts in the field, go to AQUA conferences, make contacts. That's all completely reasonable. And the proposal, which seems reasonable to me, is Diane will write up like this little RFP, which basically goes to the companies and says, what can you do for us? And the companies will reply back with what they can do for us. And then we'll look at it and say, well, is this with our money? Is this appropriate? But they'll tell us what they can do for us for free. That just seems like a smart, you should be informed kind of thing.
I'd like to remind the board, we have to go back to remembering to get recognized before speaking. So, sorry, we're trying to kill my word here.
I mean, that's perfect. If we could get it down to a scope of work, but I'd like to bring this scope of work back to the board for the full board. Okay, this is worth asking a consultant to. That would be awesome. But I was hearing that part being skipped, and we're going directly to talking to consultants. So what you're talking about is the process. That's perfect. That's how we do it.
So,
I'll just say, I guess I was still, to sort of answer what you were saying, Jeff, I guess I was still wearing my hat from before I was on the board, when I was and still do dial in like to meetings of non-government organizations.
They say everything is fine. What is it, last 2 weeks ago, when the power went up, it came on and everything was running fine.
Roy.
Yep.
Mute yourself, Roy.
But my question is, okay, how can I, if the power goes off, or the power goes on, how can I turn the dead thing off? Or how, no, I take it back. Everything came on. But whenever I went over there and played with the control, I think I pressed number 4, number 3, and then it kicked on, and it came on. But yeah, again, I don't know, because I never go play with it, so that's why I called you. Dan needs to come down and explain to me how this damn thing works. Uh, the generator was running. The generator was running, but there was nothing. There was no power. That's a good question. So the power went out in the meet.
Okay. Okay, he's on it, man. We'll be able to.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry, Diane, we were interrupted by.
Maybe I can add, I have the impression that, well, remembering things that Lyle used to do, that I could call somebody at Woodard and Cran and say, I'm a director, I'm not doing this officially, I just like to understand what you guys do, to have an informal thing and then do a scope of work. But if, that would be approved by the board and everything, of course. But I would think that exploratory sort of consulting with experts, which I think is what you were saying, would be okay for an individual director to do.
So as far as our board goes, we're in charge of providing water, potable, good quality water to our customers. We have a representative on the water master.
Royce told me that.
We have a representative of the water master and the water master is in charge of the entire basin. So, it seems like we're expanding our scope. It feels to me like we're trying to expand BW's scope of work to the whole basin. And I don't know that we have that power. Go ahead, Tammy.
I think our scope is providing potable water forever, for the foreseeable future. I think the area of discomfort is not today, but the long-term foreseeable future. And this division of responsibility between us, which is potable water forever to our people, and the water master who may have a different set of priorities. And I think there's maybe has the same set of priorities, but maybe not the same set of urgency, or there's some disconnect between what we feel is more comfortable with and what we think the water master is doing. And I think it's this perhaps disconnect between the two that is the cause of the discomfort. And I just get back to the sort of premise. So I do think, Diane, that it's reasonable that we, the board, write up the what can you do for us question, and all of us can feel comfortable with a what can you do for us question, and then you and Jeff, or whatever Kathy thinks is appropriate, can then make the calls, or maybe it's email, forget phone calls, just have them reply back an email, or just whatever process. But I think it's completely reasonable to ask what's out there, and then we come back and say, not too expensive, not appropriate, how helpful it is. I think that research, data, knowledge, be informed. And this seems like a possibility to be better informed.
And so your concern is water quality now and forever. And we have a rep on the water master, and I'm the alternate, so there's actually two of us. And is there a direction? Has the board directed specific requests to our representative to the water master meetings? I guess I'm wondering, are we using the processes that are in place well enough? We have Trey, who's on our TAC, he's a hydrologist, he knows this basin. We have reps on
Steve.
water master. We have Steve, who's very knowledgeable about adjudications. I'm wondering why we want to I guess maybe I need to know what these specific questions are that I'm not answering. Hang on just a minute. And why we're not using the process that are already in place, why we're jumping into why we want to spend more money on consultants. Go ahead, Tammy.
How do we know that we are doing the best possible job. If we don't go out and look at other people doing similar jobs to see if they have better ideas.
And please, I can land.
Okay, Ryan.
What the GMP and the water master are doing now is really good in terms of monitoring, but monitoring is not managing. And I haven't, as much as I've squawked in writing and a little bit and verbally at water master meetings, I haven't seen a real move towards saying, yeah, we need to manage this proactively. Worry about the minimum thresholds if we're approaching them. Start thinking about what to do. So I'm trying to answer what you said. Why are we not liking? Why am I not liking the process as it stands now? And it's that I don't see a lot of proactiveness, and I see a lot of worrying about spending money on using the consultants that exist now on the water master board. We've been able to do that well. We've WD, but anyway. So,
And how do you think a consultant will help with that? I guess, and I'm hearing what Tammy's saying, but I'm not clear on how a consultant will fix that issue of being proactive.
I think Tammy expressed it more clearly than I. They can know what's going on in other basins, what's worked in other basins. And by the way, I realize, like any consultant we would hire would have to get to know us first, and nobody's going to be perfect. There's a huge water world out there.
So we have Steve Anderson, who's well acquainted with, he works in a number of basins. We have Jeff, who's a general manager, very knowledgeable, can call other basins directly and call these other places, talk to these other places. We can get input without hiring a consultant. Have we tried that yet? I mean, I'm just looking at our resources that we have, and I'm not going to say don't investigate this, but I'm just thinking that we are not. I just feel that somehow we're still not utilizing the resources that we have.
It would help me if Diane would do what she's offering, I think what Tammy suggested, and that is write something down that we can all look at. Because the terms that Tammy's using are, what was it? To see what's out there. That's not a scope of work. That's not specific enough. We need to boil it down. What specific issues are we? It gets down to the terminology that will be used in a consultant's scope of work. Specifically, what are we asking them to do? That'd be a great first step. Because Kathy, I'm right there with you. I don't have that question, those issues in front of me, or that question in front of me to say, oh, that would really be really good to know. It's all kind of theoretical now, and once again, I am comfortable with where we are with the water master and the water master's progress. And I probably wouldn't have said that a week or 2 weeks ago, but honestly, Andy's last presentation on Prop 68, what their plans are with the grant funds going forward, and they are planning to get into some of the management, to me was a great first step. Because it seemed like a lot of the things we were asking them to do, they were doing when it came out in his presentation. So
The other thing I would like to point out is that the water master is a conglomerate of a lot of different interests, and it's not going to move nimbly as we like. It's another kind of bureaucratic type organization. I do agree with Diane that I don't feel that they're actually looking at preventive or management to get in front of. What do they call those?
constituents
Or undesirable effects, undesirable results. So I think we need to kind of harp on that, but I'm not going to keep you from asking consultants what you think, but as long as you understand what you're asking specifically for them to do. Yeah.
And I mean, if Jeff contacts his counterparts, I mean, I think Diane, I would also contact other board members from other water. They kind of get a feel for, and I mean, personally, I think a conversation is probably a better way to do it, but get a feel for what motivated them to hire a management consultant or something. I mean, maybe they didn't have, someone like Jeff in place.
Are these
and maybe-
basins that have GSAs?
So, I mean, to me, why not get some background information also, which may help you inform writing the questions or the scope of work, and just see what their situation is, because it could be much different than ours, or it could be very similar. But, and I think that would probably help you inform. Because I know you do a lot of research, and you read a lot of stuff, but I think talking to people from other places probably would help inform and maybe further define what you're potentially looking for.
Yeah.
Pajaro has a serious problem now, but their biggest issue is for a long time has been saltwater intrusion in their basin. So they do have different issues.
But they also have a lot of pesticide farming.
Yeah, it's a farming community. Okay, any other comments? Dave, you've been very quiet.
I know I have. To be very honest, it seems like we're putting the cart before the horse. And I get troubled when I feel this angst about somehow the water master isn't doing what we think it should be doing, and it's not moving quick enough, and all these things. You know, I want to remind everyone that in the stipulation, and as well as the management plan, you know, the overarching directive is to avoid undesirable results. So, I mean, there's a mandate there to avoid those results, not let the MCLs be exceeded or all these kind of things. Also, currently, with all the monitoring that goes on with the BWD and the water master, there is no evidence that there's any increasing trends in those MCLs. I mean, I think we're in pretty good shape. I would hope that everyone would just take a breath. There will be a management plan developed regarding water quality. I think Andy made that clear last meeting, and that everyone just needs to just calm down a little bit. Things are moving along, maybe not as fast as you would like, but that doesn't mean that there's a crisis that we need to address. Things are moving along. It doesn't happen as fast. I know that several of you don't like it, like we're not doing the job. The job's being done, and the job, isn't going to happen overnight. But there is no immediate crisis with regard to water quality. That's not evidenced anywhere in the basin. So everybody just needs to kind of calm down a little bit and let the process unfold.
Kathy, thanks. There are trends, alarming trends in nitrates and sulfate, I think it is, in the old Fortner well, right?
The Fortner well has not been monitored since 2017.
Yes, well, there were trends before then, and why would it have changed? And also, I'd like to say, I'm remembering cartoons from our day for some of us. Before that bank safe falls on you, 3 seconds before, you don't know it's coming. I mean, we might not know, there might be a contaminant will be coming.
We'll just have to disagree on that because there's no evidence that that's occurring. Not whether it's the 3 seconds before or a year before, the Fortner well simply may be an anomaly.
Why wouldn't we look for it ahead of time?
We are looking for it. We are currently monitoring. We have expanded the monitoring network. We are looking for it. That's being done.
They're estimating about 20 wells added to the system, right?
Yeah.
30 to 50.
It's being done. I still don't understand all the angst over it. That's just me.
I won't repeat myself, I guess. I'll save everyone that.
Well, it sounds like we're somewhat in agreement to allow you to investigate sources but, not take any action to bring it back. The scope, what their scope of work questions. I like Gina's idea of talking to other board members. I like Jeff's idea of talking to other managers. I like, Tammy's idea of coming up with, what exactly it is you want to find out from these consultants. And then bringing that back to the board and let's see if there's anything there. I kind of, I have to say that I kind of agree with Dave that, that this seems like there's a lot of high anxiety here, and I would, I would like to know whether that's real or not, or whether we're moving along and that things are happening appropriately, or the fact that we have a 5-member water master board that we can't unilaterally take action, and if there's something we can bring to the table, then great.
Yes, and one other thing quickly. Jim Bennett is kind of our swing vote, I think, and perhaps this kind of consulting support could allow us to get his attention better if there are things where it's a question of spending, for example, which unfortunately I know is a super majority, but at least maybe we could have 3 people lined up. Would be wanting to spend more on proactive water management. You like a motion, or are you comfortable just giving direction? It's just direction. Okay.
We have some public comment.
All righty.
Would you like me to read it? Just Trey put in the chat. Hi all, we have the following 3 scopes of work in progress. 1, dynamic flow and chemistry profiling and water quality optimization engineering feasibility review on well ID 4-18. 2, historical water quality review, and 3, basin characterization model review for sustainable yield update. That came from Trey.
Thank you, Trey. Did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think I just wanted to let you know that there is proposed work. These are proposals that we're working on currently to proactively manage, in one case, ID 418, an increasing trend in nitrate. So I don't need to go into detail now with this particular effort, but I think it'd be worthwhile for me to maybe do a presentation at a future board meeting so you can understand some of the work that's ongoing in the basin. Jeff had asked for us to put together a scope for historical water quality review of the district wells, and also because the water master did not approve the basin characterization model review for sustainable yield update, we're also putting together a scope of work for that particular item. I'm here always to answer questions, looking to work proactively with the Borrego Water District Board and the Water Master staff on reviewing water quality optimization in the basin. We are finally getting in that technical support services well. We met with Department of Water Resources yesterday. We had about 8 staff from DWR on the call, and we did the well design. And we specifically designed that well for the shallow completion to target the upper aquifer and better understand the potential constituents of concern, such as nitrate in the upper aquifer. So there is work ongoing in the basin, and I'm always here to answer questions when you have them. Thanks.
Thank you, Trey. Brooke, Trey is our our consultant for the basin at BWP. And he works on the technical advisory committee for the water master, and he works at our direction for them. And I would appreciate, Trey, a future presentation on these things that you're working on. I think it would be very helpful. So when you're ready to do that, let us know and we'll put you on the agenda. Okay.
ID 418 is the one in Indian Branch.
Yes, that's the one that's close to the minimus well that's going to go in.
Just right off the horse camp road.
Yeah.
Your backyard.
Any other questions, comments, final? Wendy?
This feels very funny, but may I please be excused?
Oh, yes, you do not.
No, that's a long item. Thank you all so much.
You never have to ask the excuse. Yes.
Bye. Oh, bye. Thank you, guys. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Any final comments on this subject? Yeah.
So the subject is additional consulting help for BWD, right? I have a different comment. Nothing to do with what we just talked about.
Okay, is it water master related?
No, not at all.
I was going to say that's our next agenda item.
No. So perhaps, Jeff, blue sky consulting help. We have, the water district has a SCADA system in place, and soon, relatively soon, we'll have an AMI, automatic meter infrastructure system in place. And so the ideal superhero engineering skill set would be someone who's familiar with managing Internet of Things, remote device networks, and thinking about
Excellent.
some of the fail safes, like we talked a meeting or two ago, like one of the tanks overflows, the water was gushed. Well, that means the SCADA system failed. If the pump is still pumping and the tank is overflowing, so that leads to a set of questions about what is the SCADA system failure backups, what are the alerts, so someone who can think about managing these relatively new to water district technology solutions that we have. So I put that on the list of
That's an excellent
skill sets. Not necessarily one person, but nonetheless, I would just put that on your long list of ideal skill sets.
Thank you. That's very useful. All right, so.
I have no other comments on this topic.
Okay, so we're clear on what you're going to be doing.
You're okay with me calling other board members?
Other board members, if you want to email a consultant, if you have a specific scope of work in mind that you are looking to do, and talk to Jeff.
Right. I mean, it's a free country. You can definitely call any consultant you want and talk to them. It's not the normal way to start the process that directors contact them. So if we're really going to do an official process, it would just be for me to do it. Please do whatever feels right to you. So yes, no, for sure. So I'm not discouraging it. It's cool.
If it gives you some ideas about what you want to ask, the questions you want to ask, the scope of work, then you can bring that back.
Mine was more process, like, it's not my job. Start the consultant selection process. But
Well,
I wasn't right where you were. So, yeah.
The board has to talk about it. Okay, thank you. All right. So let's go to item 2D, the Borrego Springs Subbasin Water Master Board. We just had a Water Master meeting last week. So anything, I thought it was a pretty good meeting.
I did too. There were three big issues. One was the approval of the roles and responsibilities of the TAC. I think that we kind of took Trey's comments into account when they came back with a final draft. and that was approved. The other,
And just as an aside, Dave, Trey was happy with the
Yeah.
proposal as it was written. So,
yeah, he was, it's
so
good.
that's always a good thing when your consultant is okay with it. So, okay.
So the other thing was the annual report, which I think that almost everyone involved was pretty happy with. The difference this year than the previous year was that the public comments were part of the package going to the court, and the responses from the water master staff. That's been done. The third big thing was the amended budget, which was kind of pushed down the road a little bit. I think there was a lot of concern about the timeliness of the reimbursements from DWR, and that if they did not occur in the 90-day time frame, that it was likely that the water master could run out of money. So that kind of pushed down the road. Staff was asked to come back with some alternatives about what do we do if we don't. In my mind, it's going to mean higher assessments, and I don't have any as much as Shannon Squaws.
It was giving a little bit of heartburn to some of the other members.
Yeah.
But I think that's the easy answer for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was like $100,000 and some shortfall, over 50 some pumpers. I mean, that's not a lot in terms of an increased assessment, but we will have some alternatives as to how to deal with this potential fiscal crisis at our next meeting. We'll talk about that then. And in Andy's report, I think it's important to note that when Andy talked about, the annual report, he included this idea that the groundwater quality optimization plan can move ahead in terms of a future management plan, and that those things are kind of underway. Trey had just mentioned some of those things that would be included in that scope of work. And I think that we're on the right track, and it's happening, it is happening at a pace that I think is reasonable. I don't think that there's a lot of, foot dragging and a lot of unnecessary delay in terms of implementing things. I think we're on the right track. I agree with Jeff that, it's only been recently, for me, talking to water master staff, that I feel a lot more comfortable than I did even 6 months ago, or even 2 or 3 months ago. So I think we're moving in the right direction. I think that overarching directive to avoid undesirable results, is kind of hitting home to people. And as much as some on the board don't like to hear that, wait until the problem happens and then figure out how to solve it kind of attitude. I think people are starting to understand that we don't have any options in that. We are to avoid those undesirable results, not wait till they happen.
I was pleasantly, I was very satisfied with what Andy said in terms of, I felt like we had listened to concerns. Yeah. And I do think that the next annual report will reflect some of the things that we were concerned about. Since we can't act on the basin unilaterally, I think the fact that, we are getting everybody going in the same direction is really important.
And I think both of the governing documents, not only the stipulation itself, but the GMP, which we hope gets approved sometime soon, provides a pretty clear direction as to how to manage the basin, not just monitor it, but actually manage the basin.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Randy?
Something just occurred to me that's kind of been percolating. I wonder if we started talking here more about Sigma. So perhaps our water quality subcommittee would be framed as responding to Sigma instead of just water quality. Sorry, I'm not saying it very clearly, probably because I just thought of it. But I don't think the Water Master Board has been given the directive, and I'm thinking mostly of Aware and T2 recreation, let's say, that Sigma is overall, right? And I don't know if that should have come from Jim Larkman or from Andy or who, but, and as you say, they are starting to think about undesirables.
Starting to.
That's great.
Yeah.
But I do think that you are correct in terms of Shannon's, I'm sorry for not listening.
It's okay, it's okay.
You know, Shannon thinks that the sole responsibility of the Water Master Board is the stipulation, and that's not true. DWR, maybe some of you saw recently in approving a GSP, noted that water masters have the same power and responsibilities as a groundwater sustainability agency. And I think that people need to begin to understand on that board. And I mean, we are the same as a GSA, and we have the same responsibilities as a GSA beyond the stipulation, so that Sigma does play a much larger role than I think what most people think in terms of the basin management.
May I ask, so you've seen that, I've just sort of been deducing that DWR equates water masters and GSAs. You've seen that in writing somewhere?
Yeah, actually, Steve sent an email out last week, I think, talking, you know, some of the highlights that, you know, things that he had read from these approvals, and one of those things was, quote, that water masters have the same powers and responsibilities as a GSA.
Jenny, you had your hand up.
I either missed that email or, okay.
Well, and I mean, I think it gets back to making sure we are asserting the water district's asserting our opinion about this in a formal way, and sending letters in. And I know it's not like every time there's something, but when there's a critical document or something like that, the fact that we put something on record makes a big difference. So I'd advocate to continue doing that. You know, even for the annual reports, because I'm hoping that they kind of read some of what we provided, and maybe that informed how Andy presented it in his report. I don't know.
It did seem, I mean, I felt like there was a change in, it was subtle, but I felt like there was a change in the way that he presented the annual report and how he talked about and was responsive to our questions about the future annual report. So I felt it was a little bit different than what had been presented the previous meeting. And so, and I do wonder, you know, Jim Markman works for the Water Master, and he is not really very vocal about asserting his, you know, asserting things like, you know, best science, and this is a Sigma that we're, you know, about enforcing Sigma, not just a stipulation. He lets a lot of things go by that I wonder, like, where is our attorney on that?
He's very lackadaisical about things.
Yes, he is.
I'm disappointed.
And I am too. And I wonder if there's a way to, you know, before the meetings to remind him of those things. I feel like he's kind of out there.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's probably an unfair thing to say in public, but I don't feel that he's doing everything he could to represent the water master as a whole. Tammy.
Question on that, maybe know, is, does the water master review its consultant contracts when they're thinking about their people? And does that come up for review and renewal? Or is this your water master's lawyer?
He serves at the pleasure of the board until he doesn't.
Yeah. There's no formal review or, you know, that kind of scrutiny that goes on, but it does serve at the pleasure of the water master, and I'm sure that if the board chose to review that, it certainly could. I don't think that we've gotten bad advice from him. I just don't think we've gotten all the advice that we should.
Right, he's been silent when he shouldn't have said,
Yes.
my concern. So I wondered if we could just would like you to speak up. Tammy?
I request, Jeff, that you send the Steve email that Dave talked about. I've caught up on my emails, and so it maybe got lost in spam. I did not read it, and it sounds very interesting. Yeah.
I'd just like to comment, I've done some reading about Jim Markman, and he's been involved in the huge adjudications. I think Mojave and so I think he has the framework of the old adjudications, which really was a different mindset than the Sigma adjudication. So just something to keep in mind.
It never hurts to remind him and the water master when it is appropriate that, you know, we have to follow SIGMA. It's not just a stipulated agreement. But I think, you know, and that hasn't happened lately, but, and as Dave says, they're kind of starting to come around to the idea of undesirable, you know, preventing undesirable results, but we need to keep, we always have our opportunities during the water master meeting to bring that up.
Yeah, and didn't we agree last time to have, not Steve, but another attorney?
Yes, so Sarah Foley was at our last meeting. She is able to, she's fairly familiar with, I mean, she was part of the process. And she gets briefed along with all of us before the water master meeting, and she was present at the last meeting.
And I mean, as the board, could we also encourage her to insert herself at times when we think that there needs to be a reminder to the water master board? I mean, that's primarily her reason for attending.
Right, right, and I think,
with all due respect,
she was, yeah, and I think she's been given that instruction, but we can, and really, during this last meeting, it wasn't necessary, but I believe that she will speak up if she, you know, corrected when there's something that needs to be. You know, the last time we talked to her was about, you know, the fact that there was there was a belief that that they didn't have to work with anything that wasn't a water master generated project in terms of best science, and that best science is best science no matter who does it. And she knew it, but yeah, we could also ask her to remind them about safety as well.
Madam President, we have a request for public comment from Kathy Milkey.
Okay. Or do you have any other comments about? Kathy, you had a comment?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say that I do find this conversation a little bit confusing. I think that the Water Master Board, from what I've heard and seen, and also from all of the parties to the settlement agreement and stipulated judgment, there's just a broad understanding that all of that is in compliance with SIGMA. You know, if SIGMA wasn't the law, I don't think any of that would have gotten started. And then the reason the stipulated judgment, I think in particular, is important is because it not only is it in compliance with SIGMA, it goes beyond SIGMA and has settled other items. Like, for example, the reason there's a 70% ramp down is to meet the requirements of SIGMA, but the ramp down itself was established in the judgment. And so people need to comply with the judgment so that the ramp down is achieved. But you know, there's several different ways that the basin could have chosen to reach sustainability. And so I just think there's a general understanding that the stipulated judgment is in compliance and is being done for SIGMA. And so maybe you don't hear that expressed at the Water Master Board meetings because it seems to be implied and understood by everybody, including all of the Water Council and the consultants that are present. And I just wanted to present that out there.
Thanks, Kathy. We appreciate that, and that is exactly part of the problem. Part of what I hear is that they believe that the stipulated agreement is only about the ramp down, and it's not about undesirable results, and we're trying to bring that back into the conversation. Anybody else? Excellent. Okay, so now, Technical Advisory Committee. Trey, did you have anything new to add on that Technical Advisory Committee?
President Dice, I just will present that we're working with the TAC right now on the TSS well. It's been a very collaborative process with Department of Water Resources, and they will be installing the deep well this week and likely the shallow well next week. So definitely some progress on that front. So look forward to continuing to collaborate with the TAC and emphasize the need to address water quality issues moving forward. Thank you.
Thanks. Did they decide to stop at 750 feet, or did they keep going on the well, the deep part?
Yes, we got geophysical logs, and I actually went out to the site because I wasn't sure if we actually hit bedrock or not. But based on the review of the visual logs and the geophysical logs, it looks like we just have in this part of the basin some shallower bedrock or conglomerate type deposit, heavy boulders. So we ended up ceasing drilling at 785 feet roughly. And I'm happy to we got some really cool new logs. It's called a nuclear magnetic resonance logging. It's like an MRI of the earth, just like you get an MRI of your body. So I'm happy to present that information at a board meeting in the future.
Yeah.
I think it'll be very interesting.
I think it would be interesting. I hope you'll bring that as part of your presentation. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go down to section 3, the board committee reports as needed. We have standing and ad hoc committees. And as mentioned, we have a budget audit and budget committee meeting tomorrow at 1 o'clock. So if anyone is interested in attending, we are going to do our initial review of the next year's budget. And so all of the stuff we've been talking about today will come into play if we need to find money for extra stuff. So, but right now we're just starting. So thank you, Jessica, for pulling all the numbers together for us to start looking at. And we'll be doing that Wednesday here at 1 o'clock. Any other committee reports? Either standing or ad hoc. I think that's the only standing committee. Any ad hoc committees? All right. Nobody's jumping up in their seat, so
Maybe I should
Okay.
report on something. Trey was kind enough to give some time last week to a meeting that I had regarding water quality with him and John Peterson, which was looking at that issue that John has been focused on of whether the South Management area is actually a confined aquifer or not. And the reason that's related to water quality is that if it's not, and we know that there's arsenic down there and I think high nitrates, would that, and also as the water level is lowered, would that affect the de minimis wells that are around there? So, and Trey, what I got out of it was that Trey thinks it's a semi-confined aquifer down there, and that our aquifer really, it's not that there aren't actually little dividers between the management areas that the water moves around a bit, at least in the whole basin. And John was happy to have gotten that discussion. Trey.
great. Anything else? Okay, so we're going to go down to section 4 then, the staff reports. Mr. Poole.
That's a very confusing title for this. Let's explain what they all mean. Okay. Okay, so in terms of the existing Prop 68 grant, you recall $6.1 million for a combination of BWD, school district, UCI, and water master projects. Okay. And if you recall, BWD is responsible for all these projects because we are the contracting agency with DWR. So, for example, environmental reviews must all be done as if the water district was actually performing the work because we are the grantee. So all projects must survive CEQA, for example. So we are responsible to ultimately approve CEQA for the various projects that are part of the Prop 68 grant. Now, most of the projects that are included in the Prop 68 are studies on paper, so maybe the impacts to the rainforest might be the most. But there are actually a couple projects, right? Maybe monitoring well might still be part of it, one of the water master projects. Some well abandonment, right? Activities were part of it. So there's just a few of the activities might need something like a notice of exemption. But the vast majority of the way the dollars are going to be spent are for studies, right? So virtually zero environmental reviews. We will file the paperwork, but there's no need for environmental review. So at a future board meeting, probably the one in 2 weeks, you will see a complete list of all the BWD and sub-grantee projects and the various corresponding environmental documents that are needed for each sub-grantee and ourselves to actually implement and complete the projects. Okay. Once again, that's just because it's our responsibility to do that because we are the grantee.
Do we have someone doing the CEQAs?
The good news is the vast majority of notice of exemptions, we've passed out a template to those sub-grantees that don't have that area of expertise. And I think we might be filling in one of the templates I did for the stewardship. So I can review that. But, so yes, you will see that in the near future, and that's why it's there because we are on the hook as the grantee. Similarly, how the money's spent is I described as the procurement procedures. The district, and just like with the environmental review, it's the BWD policies that must be followed in terms of how the money is spent. Private organizations out there. But, for example, like sole sourcing is a big deal, especially on professional services agreements. Like, for example, we had UDEC, BWD hired UDEC to perform the design and the help with the bid documents on our wastewater treatment plant monitoring law. And we sole sourced that professional services agreement because of their expertise, the short timeline that's involved with this project, but we have reasons for doing a sole source professional services agreement. And our existing purchasing policy is important, but there are also an overlay of state laws that our purchasing policy must comply with. And it's all done for the right reason, to protect public dollars, right? To make sure that public agencies like ours aren't tossing contracts to their friends without the appropriate review. So, Steve and his contract folks and Jessica and myself have had probably 20 emails about this issue, and I think it's best for the and basically you, the BWD board, can do whatever you want. You can either adhere to your own policies and practices or defer those or hold them off for this one, for a project or two. You can follow a different procedure as long as you take the appropriate actions, and as long as it's within state law. So then there's kind of some audit trail benefit to having the Water District Board approve procurement procedures that you, the Water District Board, are recognizing that we and some of the sub-grantees will be entering into sole source, so no selection process, professional services agreements. It's like, well, the classic example is, what was it? UCI, right? Land IQ told the world that there is no other organization in the entire planet that could do the work needed by Land IQ except the UCI. And they used almost those exact words, right? There's no other consultant that they could pick that could do the work. So to me, that's kind of the ultimate sole source. So it's based on experience, but then there's also this big overlay of the huge time crunch. And within a lot of the state laws about sole sourcing professional services agreement, meeting a quick time schedule, a lot of that often comes with emergency repairs and professional services agreements are needed in terms of emergencies. So we obviously definitely have a short time period associated with this. So even going through the selection process, there's no advantage to doing that. And when you overlay the expertise of the consultants that are being selected, that is the justification that's being used to justify the sole source of professional services agreement. So you will see a list of our contracts. The good news is we're going to, like, for example, we did a sole source professional services agreement on wastewater treatment plant design. However, the project was publicly bid. On our automated meter and infrastructure project, we're going to do proposals, which that's all cool. That is the normal procedures. So all of our projects, I guess maybe with the exception, quote unquote, of the design of the wastewater treatment plant is when we sole sourced that agreement, just like I said, because that knows everything about the project, they work on all the easements, they do everything, and we have such short time frames. So other sub-grantees are saying, well, what about us? I mean, is it okay if we sole source professional services agreement? I think the answer is yes, but we will be bringing back a list of not just the environmental reviews, but also the procurement procedures for each one of the sub-grantees, just to get the board concurrence. Yes, for these reasons, we are.
So the sole source is always justified in some way. I mean, the justification.
The sole source of professional services agreement, you can do it.
But
we try not to.
It comes with a justification for that.
In hindsight, I probably should have brought back the UDEC agreement to you before we entered into it and said, okay, I'm sole sourcing this for these reasons. I will do that in the future. So I'll get your approval.
Madam President, can I make a little short statement on this? This is Steve.
Hi, Steve. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So the general rule is that because you're a California water district, the legislature has seen fit to give this board and all California water districts, as they're called across the state, a broad authority to award contracts without going through all this public bidding and such. And so from a state law perspective, we're pretty good. What the constraint is that BWD, which is very common, has its own procurement policy, right? And some of you or all of you are aware of that. But that policy has some requirements in it that might not be quick enough, or if you were to observe those policies, it might not happen quick enough to let all of your subgrantees do their projects. And so what we would want to do, if the board is in favor of this, is it would be, from my perspective, beneficial to adopt a resolution waiving those policies within the BWD policy as applied to the Prop 68 subgrantees. And again, you can waive them entirely. You can keep some of them if you want. But I think when Jeff says he's going to come back with the list, and frankly, I haven't talked to him about this, if the board is thinking that it wants to waive the application of the BWD policy, we should really do that by resolution and say why you're doing that and why it's justified in this case, which, because of the timeline here, it's certainly justified, but we'd want to write that down and get it signed, not only for your auditor and the audit trail, but also just so the public understands what we're doing. So just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Yes, quick question. So when we were talking about the engineering firm, that would also be a sole source, but that's not related to Prop 60.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But we'll talk about that. Like my instinct now is to not open it up and do the fishing net for any interested consultant. And maybe when we meet back in 2 weeks, talk about it. Let them know. Like I said, I'm going to try to get that helpful on it. See if I can get any perfect candidate that falls out of the sky.
Which would kind of qualify for putting that fishing net out there.
I think more of the help wanted variety as opposed to consulting firms. I'm looking for an individual that would be interested in becoming a BW employee or independent contractor. David, look, inside baseball. David wanted benefits, including PERS, right? Public Employee Retirement System. So they required 2/3 of time in terms of his employment. He was 2/3 of time employed. Now, there might be a retiree who doesn't want the PERS credits because they already have it, they already have them, and yeah, so we are flexible in that area, and we can structure the deal where that individual is an independent contractor, employee that receives all benefits, or a consultant that gets no benefits, or somewhere in between. So good news is we're flexible. I'd like to see if that person, a young lady or an old lady, falls out. Or who knows? I shouldn't say that. Or a middle-aged person falls out.
The right person.
Right, well, there we go. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay, next on the list. I set the D. Okay, so good news from last year, right? Last December, as part of the federal budget approval of the omnibus, it wasn't the budget of 1.7 trillion, that was just the omnibus bill to keep the government going, right? The budget's 4.9 trillion, sorry. But last December, the $1.7 billion omnibus bill that was signed by the federal government, 4.3 million was in it for BWD to fund 80% of that number for pipeline replacements. We're going to get $3.5 million. You know that. And so we were waiting with bated breath to hear from EPA, and I did get the first email from EPA about a week ago saying, hey, you need to register here and log on to this, and there's a webinar coming up there. Nothing specific yet, but just congratulations, you did make the list, and I'm your project manager. And you can open an account with us. Introductory email. Yeah, yes. It really did happen. No joke. Wasn't it? Prank. Yes.
In writing.
You didn't say one of these strange websites.
Was it? Yeah, that's moving right along. Yeah, kind of. We kind of had a David's leaving, honestly, for some of these projects that would be perfect for him. But it's okay. The new person will do just fine. But, okay, so why not try to get some more money again this year? And so item C or three on the list was we're asking him again this year. I think I mentioned at the last meeting we were kind of at a fork in the road on whether we would ask for a solar grant or just to continue with the pipeline replacement grant. I at the last minute selected pipelines just because SDG to backpedal any sort of the solar program we were looking at that was envisioned as part of this Prop 68 grant going back last year was a turnkey operation from SDG. They did everything. The preliminary design, permanent, full design, all the bidding, all the contract management. No, their fees were crazy. $1 million plus something was to manage the whole program. So it wasn't free, it wasn't cheap, but and the cool thing was it's completely done by SDG because the biggest problem with solar right here on big projects is dealing with SDG. So the fact is now they're your rep, so they can deal with all these complicated SDG issues themselves. The challenge with that is we're 100% dependent upon SDG, and these projects need to be completed relatively quickly. We have like 1.5 to 2 years to finish these projects once we get the money, which should happen hopefully by the end of this fiscal year. So super important that we're able to move quickly. And I even did some emails to my friend at SDG&E saying, hey, we might have another funding opportunity for the program we were talking about last October as part of Prop 68. I know the costs have gone up. Can we talk about that? I heard no response. This partner said, oh, he's on vacation. He'll be back on Thursday. That was a Thursday and a half ago. And I didn't hear anything. So it was like the universe telling me that's exactly what I was waiting for. I didn't want to be stuck with SDG&E because heaven forbid we get approved and we can't do the project because of whatever reason. And sure, if we had the money in hand, it might be a whole different response, but it's like that was the universe telling me, stick with what you know. So we did submit on that. Lowry and myself did work really hard on one day to complete all the forms needed for Mrs. Feinstein's submittal. And then, so we really have 2 in the works now. We have still three, a Feinstein, an ISA, and a Padilla request. So last year we got a no on Feinstein, we got a yes from ISA and Padilla, but we did send a request to all 3 last year. This year we're doing the same thing. Okay, so I scratched the concept of solar, and we put in more pipelines, and that is a deep well and, Club Circle, thank you very much. And then the pipeline, the Lazy S, kind of out there near Palm King. Because part of the 2022 ISIPD money is for Sun Bowl. Alan kind of brought up a cool point. I was kind of asking him to brainstorm potential projects. He thought, hey, if we could get the pipeline from Sun Bowl to Palm Canyon, I guess there's some kind of small pipes diameters between Palm Canyon and the Sun Bowl development. If we could beef that up, and that provides increased, improved, enhanced service to that whole part of our system. So he requested that we have the pipeline connect us from the kind of the southern limits of Sun Gold to Palm Canyon. So we've submitted now another $4.3 million worth of projects. So when you take out the 20% we would need to pay, it gets us to 3.4999999 million. And so we'll see. It's kind of weird to try to find projects. I had to go back into our 2018 CIP because we built everything that's on our CIP. It's pretty crazy. Like I had to literally go looking for projects. Like, gee, what did we want to build 5 years ago? And I had to go all the way back to 2018 to find the well and whatever. They were priorities back then. So pretty crazy how our CIP is built. I mean, nothing. Obviously, we still have 40 miles of pipe. 90 total, but 40 miles of pipe that needs to be replaced right away. Wow, pretty crazy how that's changed. So we're trying again for a 2023 special dispensation from the federal government. So fingers crossed. So we'll know what comes in at the end of this year, right? Or beginning of next year. I don't know how that works. It'll happen in December probably of this year, right? Last minute omnibus. Okay, so fingers are crossed. We will get some money in 2020. And then Concept being our district engineer, designer, developer.
What are the chances of lightning striking twice?
I just don't know. Like maybe once you're in, or do they say, oh, you got it last year out, or wait, it might depend on the demand.
I'm totally glad that you did all the work.
I don't know how we did it last year.
You had to get support letters and everything.
Oh, so. Jim Desmond, thank you very much. Thank you, Jim. He's listening, but he turned around the support letter in 5 minutes. And then, yeah, Cyrus got us. What an accomplishment. State senators to turn around the letter. Less time than that, so.
They got all their ducks in a row pretty quickly, so thank you, Jeff, for doing that.
Honor was relieved on getting it. That's it for me.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you can ask us about the science going to legislators who are new. I introduced them.
So that was his favorite thing to do. I haven't bothered him at all.
Any other questions, comments?
I have one comment, just so everyone knows. I spoke with Mark Stevens, who's the district school superintendent. Mark has been asked by local folks to have the district appoint someone to the TAC. And so he's not sure whether he wants to do that or not. But I do know that he has contacts with Travis Hutzman at UCI to see what sort of folks that are attached to UCI might be interested to serve on the TAC. So we may have a new TAC member in the foreseeable future.
And the school district would have to pay.
Yeah, well.
No.
Well,
I talked to David Garman too.
Well, if Mark were to hire a consultant, from a firm, yes, he would have to pay. UCI would offer someone to participate with no fee.
Oh.
So from that perspective.
Usually UCI is quick to say, but it costs this much.
Well, there may be some attached costs, but Mark's mind that person would be relatively free. He wouldn't be paying some firm a couple $100 an hour to have someone sit there at the meetings.
Jim Dice.
Yeah.
I mean, I did.
Oh, yeah, let's complicate things.
So I
You hear that, Michelle?
Mark's concern was that it felt like the local folks who had approached him were looking for an advocate. And that position is not about advocacy as much as it is just, technical review. It's about the science. It isn't about policy and advocacy. So he was trying to get that straight with folks that if they were looking for an advocate, that they were passing on the wrong guy.
Right. I think there has been some concern about a voice for the community.
Yeah.
And at least in terms of the technical review and certain concerns, but
Yeah, Mark is not able to appoint him because Mark's not a pumper. You actually have the whole BPA to have someone appointed.
that's the road.
There, Stephen.
Yes.
Okay,
The school holds Mark.
Yeah, right. I got you lost in
But there are a number of private parties in the community that hold BPA. And it would be a matter of finding one of them to be willing to support someone on the tech. That's, still possible. But yeah, it would be nice to have the school district participate if they feel like they need that. Any other comments, questions? Okay, so we are going to adjourn the open part of our meeting and go into closed session. How about what time is it? 10. You guys can do the 5-minute break and then we'll go into closed session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Nice to
See you next time on the 20th of March at 9 a.m.